Hello, welcome back for another video on ARK Survival Ascended. Today I'll be showcasing the top 10 creatures you need to tame for Extinction Ascended. As always, I won't be including any paid DLC creatures, so let's not mess around and let's get straight into it. Kicking off our list at number 10, we have the Enforcer, an element-consuming mechanical robot, found commonly guarding the entire Sanctuary City. To obtain one, you can craft a primitive one at a city terminal, and to find a higher level blueprint, you'll need to venture out and hunt down some wild Enforcers. Typically, the higher level you kill, the higher level of the blueprint. Once crafted at a city terminal or tech replicator, you'll have yourself a nice little versatile traveling mount. With its high stamina and ability to scale vertical surfaces and ceilings with ease, or bolting away from danger with its teleportation ability, plus being fully immune to fall damage, will make the Enforcer a great traversal mount for almost any occasion. Preferring element, shards or dust as food, no idea why you'd want to feed them element, as element dust is plentiful on Extinction. It also boasts a high weight stat and can come in very handy as a resource gatherer, utilizing its sharp claws to slice up lampposts, tables and chairs in the sanctuary for a nice amount of element dust, crystal, scrap metal and electronics, or from killing corrupted creatures, as it will deal a whopping 4 times damage to them, which in turn can make a high level Enforcer a valuable asset when defending the easy and medium difficulty OSDs. In at number 9 is the Doedicurus, which would never usually make a top 10 creature list on other maps. However, I do believe them to be a valuable asset for resource gathering, and the Doed excels at this, especially on Extinction. Found spawning everywhere throughout the desert dome and rarely below the obelisk in the sanctuary, tamed via typical knockout methods and preferring regular kibble. Saddled up at level 34, you will be rolling around in no time at all. Known for its exceptional stone gathering capabilities and with a massive 75% weight reduction for it. On Extinction, however, you will be heading straight for the lampposts, tables and chairs in the sanctuary, which when paired with the Argentavis makes for the perfect farming team. The Doed is by far the most efficient gatherer when harvesting these structures in the city, which is why it makes the list. In at number 8 is the Gas Bags, one of the best farming creatures in the game, found within the majority of the wasteland while being slightly more common in the southern regions. Taming, however, can be a little bit of a challenge due to it constantly inflating itself, giving it damage reduction, but it can be frozen in place with a creature featured later on this list, to make taming it much easier. I would highly advise trapping it if you plan on taming it. I'm pretty certain I saw Captain Fat Dog upload a trap recently, so be sure to check that one out rather than look at this ugly trap I've built. Preferring superior kibble for the best taming efficiency. Once tamed, can be ridden with or without a saddle, which can be unlocked at level 43, which can also seat one passenger too. It has the unique ability of blowing itself up like a balloon, filling itself with gas. The amount of gas it holds is determined by leveling its oxygen stat. Using this to traverse can be quite a challenge to master, as it does take max fall damage if you run out of gas mid-air. But of course, that can also be avoided simply by dismounting before you hit the ground. But it is well worth getting to grips with it, as there's no better way to get you to and from those glorious metal nodes, ideally with a mining drill in hand after the release of Genesis Part 1. With a very high weight stat, you will be able to quickly hoard heavy resources back to your base in no time at all. The Gas Bags is also an extremely tanky beast, which when fully inflated will receive 80% damage reduction from incoming attacks, making it the perfect bullet sponge for many occasions. It is no fighter by any means, bless it. However, its farming capabilities are too good to ignore, especially with any non-flyer maps. Taking the number 7 spot is the Mech, another mechanical robot which will be your new best friend when it comes to facing the titans of Extinction. Unlocked at a whopping level of 91 and requires element as fuel to perform most of their actions, excluding running, moving and slashing. Able to traverse great distances with its jetpack, consuming element as fuel and generating heat, which you'll need to keep a close eye on unless you want to become a sitting duck, or at least for a short time, but you definitely don't want that happening at the worst of times. Boasting a tech pistol for ranged damage output at the cost of element and heat as you spray and pray down your enemies. At close range, it can be deadly, wielding a giant tech sword at the ready to slice and dice up anything in your way. And with a base where turrets are non-existent, can flatten it in no time at all with its giant AoE attack. The Mech, if need be, can also come in very handy for hoarding cargo across the wasteland, with its very high base weight stat. After defeating a hard or legendary OSD, you will have a high chance of finding a blue blueprint for these bad boys, and once equipping any of the 4 module attachments make it a force to be reckoned with. Its support controller throwing down a force field to block incoming projectiles, giving all allies 30% damage reduction when inside the bubble. Enemies can however enter the bubble at their own risk, as if they do decide to enter and realize it ain't the place to be, as upon leaving the bubble they will receive 40% increased damage taken, while also having their movement speed decreased by 30% for the duration of 30 seconds. Its anti-swarm controller works kinda like a sand turret, able to fire a barrage of 16 rockets at a target to inflict some big damage, which will require rocket pods as ammunition. Its target killing module is basically a giant cannon using cannon shells as ammunition, able to also deal high damage. The final module is a little different to the other 3. It is the Mecha Killer, aka Mommy, which can be merged with 3 other mechs after attaching it to a mech, transforming it into the Mega Mech, which can be a valuable asset in taking down the Alpha King Titan. Able to dish out a massive amount of damage with its sword. In PvP, a mech will deal 3 times damage with its pistol and a massive 9 times damage to tame titans, making them extremely useful to have at hand in defending your base. In at number 6 is the resource and loot goblin, that is the Gacha. One of my personal favorites on the list, the Gacha is my best friend. You will find the Gacha spawning deep down in the sunken forest, tamed via a unique taming method where it picks up items off the ground that you throw down in front of it, which ranges from almost anything and everything. However, structures being the preferred taming food, with greenhouse structures seemingly giving the best taming effectiveness, followed by metal structures. I recommend using ceilings because they are cheaper than foundations. I personally just tame them with stone structures or metal because they're much easier to craft, and I'm okay with losing a few levels. Once tamed and saddled up at level 38, it will produce Gacha crystals when fed. Ideally, you can ram them full of stone because it is cheap and cheerful. Have yourself a peg of Mastax nearby and enable Gacha crystal collection, and it will pick up crystals that your Gachas drop. All wild Gachas will produce different resources once tamed, when accessing their radial menu, having 6 options to choose from. And if you're lucky enough, you can even find one that can produce black pearls or the very rare element dust. So it's worth taming any and every level when searching for a Gacha, specifically for the purpose of producing resources. For the Gacha to be most effective, you will want to only have 1 male and 1 female close together, as if there are more nearby they will become sad, causing them to not drop as many crystals and not pick up items off the ground. And we don't want that. We want our Gachas to be having an absolute blast. You can however own multiple pairs if they are far enough away from other pairs, roughly around 10 or so foundations apart. The quality of loot can be improved by types of food they eat. You can chuck a load of plant species wide traps inside them, or have yourself a snow owl or 2 parked in front of them, so they can pick up their owl pellets whenever dropped, while leveling up its crafting skill to 160% or above. With meeting all this criteria, your Gacha will become a master of producing loot and resources alike. The Gacha's utility does not end there. If you are feeling adventurous, they can also come in handy when taking them for a walk outside your base. They can be useful for gathering basic resources and used to move heavy loads with their high carry weight, while having 50% weight reduction for metal, stone, wood and fungal wood. However, nothing beats being able to passively produce resources and tasty loot in abundance from the comfort of your own base, which is what makes the Gacha so good. In at number 5 is the Velonosaur, a much loved dinosaur by many survivors mainly due to its defensive capabilities. Found throughout the desert biome and more commonly around the edges of the dome. A simple or not so simple knockout tame preferring regular kibble. Saddled up at a low level of level 27. Equipped with a melee attack and tail swipe attack that deals average damage, the Velonosaur comes into its own with its ranged attacks. Able to fire spines directly from its head with limited range, however can quickly output a serious amount of damage to targets, especially when ridden, due to its ranged attack scaling with melee damage. Adding to this, can also temporarily ground flying creatures. The Velonosaur becomes most useful when not ridden, as they can be set into turret mode. Stick it on aggressive and it will mow down any targets in range at the cost of its own stamina, while also draining its food stat very quickly. Although sadly not affected by its melee damage when in this state, either way the Velonosaur will be a very valuable ally in keeping those nasty neighbors away. Taking the number 4 spot is going to be the behemoth that is the Dreadnoughtus, and oh yeah, it is a sight to behold. Found rarely spawning throughout the entirety of the wasteland, and of course requires a unique method of passive taming, preferring element in your final hotbar slot. Once fed will follow you for 1 minute, at which point you need to lure it to a nearby element vein, where you will have to defend it from waves of corrupted creatures, while it chows down on that tasty element vein. Difficulty does matter in gaining the most taming effectiveness possible, so you you will need to run the alpha element veins for that, which of course you'll need some more tactics than just a shotgun. It's not too bad really. I believe the Dreadnoughtus is immune to you and your creature's damage in it when taming it, which makes it much more doable. Once tamed, you can unlock the saddle at a whopping level 100. The Dreadnoughtus has a variety of powerful attacks at its disposal: a head bash frontal attack, dealing some hefty damage and the biggest knockback you've ever seen. A tail swipe attack, also dealing high damage and knockback. Both attacks are great for harvesting berries and are pretty slow to perform, but I guess it would make it pretty overpowered if they could attack as fast as a Bronto. It has 2 ranged attacks at its disposal. When cannonballs are placed inside its inventory, they can be spat out as acid-coated projectiles. I'm not too sure how this works yet, but as far as I know, it can obliterate structures and can even damage tech tier. And yes, as you all may have already seen, it has a ranged attack just like Godzilla. This can also be charged up while being attacked to maximize its damage output, capping at 20. Oh, and I'm not sure if this is intentional, but yes, it does also appear to heal from sweet veggie cakes. And they can also breed, so I can imagine a fully imprinted one could be a force to be reckoned with. Of course, you can also place a variety of different structures onto the platform saddle and make yourself a mobile base. However, be warned that whatever damage those structures take is also dealt to the Dreadnoughtus itself as a whole, so you definitely wouldn't want to go into battle against a Titan with a full crib on top. Speaking of Titans, it deals 50% extra damage to them and gains 50% damage resistance against them too. In at number 3, we have the Carcharodontosaurus. The Carcha is a valuable asset in making your extinction journey a whole lot easier, and in this instance, it does everything a Giga can, but better. Found rarely spawning around the edges of the snow dome, with a unique taming method of dragging high drag weight creatures for it to gobble up to build up its trust. Mounting it, proceeding to kill as many creatures as you possibly can to improve its taming effectiveness, which you will rinse and repeat until it is tamed. Saddled up at a whopping level 96, with a wide variety of passive buffs at its disposal. Killing Frenzy to temporarily give it a speed boost, which occurs after every killing blow. Dreaded, which decreases any healing the target receives with every bite. A Roar, giving the incited buff to nearby allies, temporarily increasing their movement speed, which will drain any Blood Rage stacks, which leads us on to it. Blood Rage is the reason why the Carcha is superior to the Giga. Although it does have a lower base damage to that of a Giga, with every kill the Carcha gains will increase its Blood Rage counter, which will give it 1.75% extra damage and healing rate per stack, which when maxed out at 100 stacks, gives the Carcha a whopping 175% increased damage and healing rate. This makes them exceptionally good for defending hard and legendary OSDs, which is probably some of the more challenging PvE content in the game. The Carcha makes this challenge much more bearable, and OSDs are the best ways to farm loot on Extinction, and everybody loves hoarding all that tasty loot, which is why the Carcha makes it so high up on the list. Almost taking the number 1 spot is the Managama, and most definitely will be number 1 for a lot of survivors, but for me it came down to my own personal preference. The Ice Jumper is found spawning throughout the entirety of the snow biome. A simple knockout tame, though it is definitely far from a simple knockout tame due to its jumping around and vanishing into thin air out of nowhere, so it is best to use a form of trap. Once trapped, it will then become a simple process of KO, and preferring exceptional kibble. Once tamed and saddled up at level 66, you'll have yourself a very versatile traveling mount with an exceptional running speed and the ability to jump numerous times in succession to boost itself into the air, strafing left and right and able to dash forward through the air like you just don't care, at the cost of a nice chunk of stamina usage, of course. It is equipped with a regular bite attack that deals decent damage and a ranged ice breath attack that it can use when on the ground, dealing a lot of damage per tick when within its effective range. This attack will scale when leveling its melee damage, and of course will drain stamina for as long as the attack key is held down, dealing exceptional damage, and if that wasn't enough, it will also temporarily freeze the target in place and slow them down. It has a crosshair when jumping that if you press the attack key it can dive bomb targets below for some big boy damage. It's no secret that the Managama is the go-to pick as a battle and travel mount for many survivors. And taking the number 1 spot is none other than the Snow Owl. I was weighing up the Snow Owl and the Managama for a very long time, and it did just come down to utility and preference. Surprisingly, the first legit flyer on the list, also found within the snow biome, and a very much simple knockout tame, and preferring superior kibble, so you can't go wrong there. Saddled up at level 61 with its high speed and stamina, a decent flying speed, able to dive and swoop at super fast silent assassin speeds. When diving and hitting the ground will stun and slow any target targets within the blast radius for 5 seconds, while also receiving damage reduction from all incoming attacks. When pressing and holding the alternate attack key, it can encase anything in ice within an 8-meter radius, which can be performed for as long as its stamina stat will allow. This keeps creatures frozen, pauses food consumption, and restores 65 health per second. Incoming damage is also reduced by 87.5%. It can also use this ability on wild creatures, as I think it's safe to say that we've all been there where we wanted to knock out a creature so bad, but it is on the brink of death, and we full well know it's gonna die if we try knocking it out. While those days are now over, the Snow Owl allows you to quickly heal up any wild creatures that you want to tame. It doesn't have the strongest bite attack by any means, but when it comes to scouting, it is an invaluable asset to any player. Able to use its infrared vision to see clearly now the ground clutter is gone. It can easily scout for potential threats that the naked eye could easily miss. Snow Owls are also great to have sat around your base. The Snow Owl pellets that they puke up will make for exceptional instant fertilizer holding 50,000 units, which is only 4k units less than actual fertilizer, so it is a tasty bit of food for your crops. And of course, as previously mentioned in the video, these pellets are consumed by the gacha to buff the loot that they drop, and of course we love to gobble up all that loot in ARK. And finally, as mentioned earlier in the video, the Snow Owl's freeze ability can be used when taming the gas bags. It will cause the gas bags to fully deflate, allowing for full torpor per hit with your tranks. There are many reasons that make the Snow Owl so great, which is why I decided to put it at number 1. Which brings us to the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, comment, share around, and subscribe for more ARK content. There's plenty more, and there's plenty more to come. And I hope you all have a great Christmas and a happy New Year, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care, goodbye. Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas!